Alright, good afternoon YouTube. In today's video, I'm going to be going over one of my favorite ways to get into programming, start making programs for yourself using methods that I kind of believe to be optimal for most people. So when it comes to novice lifters, maybe even intermediate to like very early advanced if you are lucky, I do think that a split, as I'm going to outline it right here, is actually going to be very beneficial to you. And you can always add into it, add more to it, incorporate ideas and concepts from other people you listen to, other things you want to try out. And this is something that could just last you for a very long time. So this is the split. You start out with the bench press on day one, deadlift on day two, overhead press as your third training day, and then squat as your fourth training day. So you have 4 training days, right? But the thing is, you would want to at least have a rest day somewhere in between. So you can have a rest day in between these 2 days if these are your 2 heaviest days, and then these 2 days are done right after one another. Or you can do something where, like, these Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday you rest, Thursday, Friday, these are your last 2 days a week. When it comes to how you would actually run this split, something I'm going to recommend is that you use something like a volume day and an intensity day setup. When it comes to concurrent training, there's a couple ways you can kind of go about it. There is the um, heavy light kind of setup, but there's also, let's say, the volume and intensity. Now, here's the thing with volume and intensity days. Volume and intensity days kind of mean that each day is kind of hard in its own right. It's just hard in a different way. So on a hard day or on a heavy day, you are going to be trying to push progression on load. On a light day, you're doing arbitrarily lighter work, but you're typically doing the same amount of sets and reps. So what does this mean? That means, like, let's say you're doing a 5x5. So let me turn this over so I can actually like write it, right? Let's say you're doing a 5x5, right? On a heavy day, this might be a 5x5 at like 75 or 80%, right? If something like that. On a light day, you would still do a 5x5, but you would just do it at, let's say, 50% or something like that. This is a heavy light split. That's not what I'm going to recommend to you that you do here. On here, I would actually prefer that you do something more like a volume and intensity day. So let's say that bench press is your heavy day and overhead press is your volume day. So, and then deadlift, that's your heavy day, and then your squat, that's your volume day. When it comes to how the workout actually will be structured, this is what I recommend. You're always going to start out with the main movement, which is outlined in each of these days. After that, you have your secondary movement or supplementary variation. So I personally think that one of the best ways to, like, let's say you have a more size focused goal. I like doing barbell, like on a bench press. This is your main heavy movement. And then you do, like, let's say dumbbell overhead press here. Dumbbell overhead press, right? On the overhead press day, this is where you can do something like dumbbell bench. So that way you can do more hypertrophy work or even close grip bench press. Close grip bench press, right? So that's kind of how that would show there. For the secondary supplementary variation on the squat and deadlift, this is kind of where you have a little bit more leeway, a little bit more freedom as to whether or not you want to squat or deadlift more than once a week. I think that for beginners, for maybe late intermediates or early intermediates, I should say, um, if your form is really good, yeah, you can definitely do these 2 lifts more than once a week. But let's say your goal is more hypertrophy focused, it's by no means mandatory. So let's say on the deadlift, you can do your conventional deadlift, your sumo deadlift, and then follow it up with Romanian deadlifts or stiff leg deadlifts, something like that, right? Or even rows, because I personally think that rows are a movement that are more akin to the deadlift than they are to like other horizontal pulls. So you got your deadlift, your Romanian deadlift, and your rows, and then something for back. So the back should be trained every single training day you have. Like, that's just something I personally believe to be very useful. The back can be treated with a lot of heavy, high volume, and high frequency. So it's just a very resilient muscle that you will benefit from like a lot of training. So when it comes to the back, here you can do something like maybe seated cable rows. So cable rows, dumbbell rows, something like that. Cable row. And then here you can do something like pull-ups. This will help you decompress the spine. Let me box this off so that way there's a little bit of separation. This can help you like decompress the spine or something of that nature. And then finally, you have an antagonist or bodybuilding work. So, what is the antagonistic muscle group involved in a deadlift? I'm going to say it's the muscles involved in the squat. So, on this day, you can have leg press, leg press. Now, here's where it kind of gets a little weird, right? What is the antagonistic muscle groups involved on the bench press? Your upper back, your rowing muscles, your lats. That's kind of taken care of right here, right? So, what can you do instead? More bodybuilding work. So, you can do things like chest flies, your tricep pushdowns, your rear delts, your lateral raises. All of those things can kind of be fit into this spot. And then, like on this day, so like more back, so maybe lat pull downs or um, more a different kind of row, T-bar rows if you like T-bar rows, dumbbell rows if you like those. You can put back here whatever back exercise you want to do, and then on this day you have an overhead press day, maybe more lateral raises, and then on this day you do chest flies. See how this is a very simple way to organize your training, but here's the main difference between it being like a body part split. In a body part split, you have a day entirely dedicated to shoulders. That is stupid. Instead, you should have days where you have compounds leading the day, and then you have the rest of the workout to really flush out and do more volume with everything else involved. So let's say on a bench press day, you should be hitting your chest, triceps, shoulders, and back. So an upper day basically. On your deadlift, what is hit in the deadlift? Your posterior chain, your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads to an extent, your core to an extent, your upper back through the weighted stretch. Oh, there are things that you can do for that. And that's why when you just simplify your training to go from a main movement, right here, the secondary and supplemental variation, something that will build this up, right? Because the thing is, the reason why you want to do this is that if you just try to rely on the main movement, for one, the stimulus to fatigue ratio just usually isn't that great, especially the stronger you get. So a second movement where you can put in more reps is going to benefit you. That's why you put that there. And then, like I said, always train your back. And then from there, you can do more antagonistic work to just make sure you're staying balanced, or more bodybuilding work if your goal is hypertrophy. So I know I didn't really touch squat on the last day because you can kind of see just how little I care about squat. But so yeah, let's say on a squat day you do your squats, then maybe you do hack squats, or maybe like yeah, hack squats, leg presses, um, maybe even something like a good morning if you are more deadlift focused, something like that, right? So that can go there. Then you do your back work. So maybe your vertical pulls and like horizontal pulls are on the push days. So you can start experimenting with these things. But this is just a very quick, simple, and easy way to organize your training, because a lot of people like to overcomplicate. They like to try to throw too much in there, and they're not really, but at the same time, they somehow manage to put so much into their workouts, so much into their programs, and not cover all their bases. So this kind of helps you with that. Now here's the thing with like, let's say this part, right? The bodybuilding work. So you might say to yourself like, okay, I have 4 days. They're organized by the movement of the day. I hit a secondary supplemental pattern. I do my back training and then do my bodybuilding work. But there's still some muscles that just aren't being hit. So let's say your calves, your forearms, your side and rear delts, biceps, things of that nature, right? It's really easy. You can add in a lot more bodybuilding work than you can heavy strength work. So if you are a natural lifter, I do recommend and do believe that you should have some type of heavy training, and that's really just going to be taking care of everything here, right? So your main movement, your supplementary movement, and your back training, those should be done fairly heavy, and then bodybuilding work to really like round everything out. That's super simple. You can do like a lot of this. You don't need to limit yourself to just one thing, but you should have a minimum of at least one thing. Too many people will just try to have a program where it's just main movement, supplementary movement, and back. Not enough. So my dog just heard me talk about that, and he got sad because he feels you are not going to get the best gains if you do something like that, and I promise you, you won't. So you should have at least one thing in your program that is bodybuilding. If you are strength focused, strength oriented, and you think that that's not going to benefit you, I want you to look at your admiration for guys like Matt Wenning, Westside Barbell, Louis Simmons. because a lot of what they did was bodybuilding work in addition to everything else laid out here. So this is just a really simple, oversimplified way of organizing your training. So you have the main movement, you have a supplementary movement, you have your back, and then you do either antagonistic work if you want to stay more balanced, or bodybuilding work and go from there. If you follow this template when you're making your programs, you are likely to make less mistakes. Now, the things that I'm going to cover next time are like sets and reps, right? Because sets, reps, recovery, these are all things that weave in and out with one another, and because they're all related. And then, of course, like recoverability and everything. But as in general, if you want to organize your training in a very intelligent way, this is where I would start. Eventually, you can start playing around with things. So let's say like you kind of go into a point in time where you want to specialize in your bench and your like your bench and deadlift. So then you kind of can orient things in a different way. But as far as like a general way to build size, and general way to build strength, this is what I'm going to recommend. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. My name is karelstandstrength.com. More videos just like this are coming on the way. Just been a little bit busy. A couple things are gonna also be going up on Patreon. I've gotten a couple workout reviews sent to me, and like they are in the works. But here's a couple things I'm going to do with them. I'm going to do a workout reconstruction with all of them. So if you send me a workout um, review to do for like in the past like week or so, you can like that will be going up on Patreon, or it'll be going up the YouTube channel first, but like that kind of content will be found on Patreon when I start getting that off the ground. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.